What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Full Circle. I'm your host, Joe White, aka Coach Joe, aka the handle of whatever social media platform that you found me on. Welcome back to the Full Circle. Notice I didn't say podcast. This video is gonna be a little bit different. I'm trying out some new stuff. I've always had this idea to make kind of essay style videos, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna sit here and talk about things. These videos are gonna be a little bit more filtered. I'm gonna edit them up and stuff. You'll see. I'm going to try it out, see how it goes. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I did work pretty hard on this one. This is something I want to do, something that I'm probably going to do a lot more of. So make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about this type of content. And if you want more of it, I'll keep doing it. Obviously the podcast is still going to be around. I'm just trying some new things out. Hopefully see some things work. Hope y'all enjoy this. And yeah, let's hop into it. All right, y'all. So today we're going to be talking about how social media has completely fried our society. And I know I'm one to talk because I do post all of my content on social media, but just hear me out, okay? Just hear me out. Social media and the use of social media has many upsides to it. It creates opportunities for content creators and people with creative minds, such as myself, that feel like they have the need to share what they think. And it's done other things too, like it's completely changed the game for businesses, marketing products. It's just overall, gives us a real good dopamine spike when it comes to consuming entertainment as well. Not only that, but social media gives us the opportunity to all be connected too. There are a lot of really good sides to what social media has to offer to society. But that being said, there are also a lot of downsides that social media has as well. But to me, it kind of seems like the downsides are beginning to outweigh the good sides, especially when it comes to forms of short media content. The whole idea for this YouTube video honestly came from a research paper that I did my last semester of school in the spring of 2026. I did a research paper for one of my classes, and the research paper was on declining mental health rates in adolescent teenagers and children growing up in future generations of today's society. Throughout the research that I did on the paper, I did find some pretty shocking numbers. In 2024, there was a study that was conducted by doctors at the JAMA Network, and it found that from the time period of 2017 to 2021, people ages from 5 to 22 experienced a 55.6% increase in depression diagnoses. Another study that I found when I was doing my research was a study from 2023 that showed that 28% of high schoolers in 2011 showed signs of depressive symptoms. That rose to a peak of 42% in 2021, with actual suicide rate attempts raising to 10% as well. So while I was doing this research paper, I asked myself, why? Obviously, that's the thing. If the mental health rates are declining, why? There has to be a reason, right? So during the research, I actually found out there are a lot of reasons that mental health rates are declining in younger generations now. Many outside reasons, just a different age in schools. It's the way that the world kind of is right now. We live in some crazy times. One of the biggest reasons that I found when I was conducting my research was indeed social media and usage of short form media content. And let me just clarify that not all forms of short form media content or social media are bad. It is when it just becomes an unsafe amount of media consumption, whether it's doom scrolling too much or just viewing unregulated content in general. It's just a problem, and it feeds into the declining mental health rates of future generations. Whatever the case may be, there is a lot of bad stuff on the internet and a lot of bad stuff on whatever form of social media that you choose to scroll on. And it's poisoning us, and it's poisoning us in how we form our society today. And I'll explain why. In this video, I'm going to get into 3 major factors as to why social media is poisoning us and poisoning our future generations. Before we get into the 3 different factors, I want to start by just stating a common fact, right? If you don't know, which I feel like this is pretty common knowledge, all of us should probably know this, the primary stages of development in humans is primarily ages from when you're born, but primarily ages 5 to 18. Those are the most crucial formative years of your life. During those years of your life, you're always constantly learning and growing as people, and you're setting the foundational building blocks for who you become as a person. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind while we're talking about what we're talking about today. All right, let's hop into the first factor, and that is behavioral influence. Throughout human history, media and forms of entertainment have always shaped the way that humans act and kind of how humans form their personalities. You could honestly date these forms of media going all the way back to books and plays, like before digital media. was around. We as humans are all social creatures, so it makes sense. Digitally, we can honestly probably start dating this kind of back to when the first movies came out. And let's be honest, digital media has a massive impact on the world that we know today. Movies, TV shows, obviously social media now too. Our world revolves around that stuff, man, honestly. It would be ignorant to deny the fact that media consumption does not affect the way that a person grows and develops. For generations, right? A young kid sees something on the TV or something in the cinema, right? And it grows and changes and forms a perspective of life and how they view life. I can say for me personally, I think growing up watching superhero movies, that really set the foundation for who I became as a person today. Even some TV shows, man, like watching The Office, that's probably where a lot of my humor comes from, bro, because those were just actions that were impressionable to me at that young age when I was impressionable. But anyway, back to my point. They see that person on the TV. They want to walk like that person. They want to talk like that person. Want to be like that person to the point where it begins to mold who they're becoming as individuals. See, that correlation between media consumption and character development is still around today. You could just say it looks a little bit different now. In today's day and age and what it takes to get famous, especially when it comes to getting into content creation, I would say it's pretty rare for somebody who's getting into content creation to grow and a massive following unless they're doing something that obviously makes them stand out. That's obvious, right? But unfortunately for some of these content creators nowadays, that means that going to that next level and doing something that stands out is going to do something that, or it pushes the limits of extreme measures sometimes. A lot of people who are out there that are trying to get their 15 seconds of fame, that, you know, they're kind of acting out in a specific way on a live stream. They act out in a specific manner that is geared towards the audience that they are trying to capture. Everybody knows that the younger generation is the one who primarily uses social media. That is the audience of whose attention that these content creators are trying to grab. So you could look at generations before social media, right? And who the role models were and who the kids were always trying to act like. You could look and see who these role models are, right? Sports heroes, superheroes, rock stars, mega stars, man, pop stars, whoever. For example, people like Hulk Hogan, Michael Jordan, Sylvester Stallone, Elvis Presley. I mean, the list goes on, right? And those are just men. There's obviously influences for women out there too. And one thing that we all figured out at one point or another is that all these people that were painted as these role model images back in the day, they all turned out to be some pretty horrible people. I mean, everybody I just named was not a good person. I would say that the main difference between those role models and the people of influence today on social media is the extreme measures that people go to get famous on social media today, and how social media and the algorithms kind of force feed us to watch all this stuff. And not only how they force feed us to watch this stuff, but also how they force feed our younger generation to consume this content as well. You could argue that the content back then and the ways of influence, it was more regulated. It was probably more industrialized almost. The industry was trying to push out this image of what men and women should be like. So people in the generations pre-social media, they grew up thinking that these people were genuinely heroes because obviously they had a great PR team around them because they were doing some pretty horrible things. And maybe honestly back then people knew they were bad people and nobody said anything. I don't know. The people of influence were portrayed how the entertainment industry wanted them to be portrayed. It greatly developed how those people developed in the early stages of their lives. So you may be asking yourself, the role models back then were fake. About 99% of what you see on social media today is fake. So really, what's the difference? I mean, it's all fake. It's all fake. None of it is real. So what's the difference between what it was like back then and what it is now? What's the difference between the people of influence back then and the people of influence now? I would say that the main difference is that even though the media back then was a lot more industrialized, I would say, and probably a lot more kind of by the book, when you compare it to now, when yes, influencers and influence is still industrialized and regulated, but most of the time it's completely random, and what is put in front of your face is completely random. Not only is it completely random, but it is also pushed to the extreme limits. The norm of what it took to become famous or to become a person of influence has only escalated as the evolution of anything ever. People get tired of seeing the same thing, so they keep thinking of new ways to get famous, and unfortunately some of those ways to get their 15 seconds of fame is interesting, man. It's interesting. A lot of what you see on social media now in 2026, when people are trying to become famous to get their lick of fame, is content that is geared to outdo whatever it was that the last person before them did. And so when you have a situation like that where the next person is trying to outdo whatever the last person did, given whatever the last person did was probably some crazy stuff, it just leads to a cycle of continuous bullshit. Like, I mean, you see it a lot now, man. People will do anything for their 15 seconds of fame. And we all see this, all this media that we consume, we all see it happen. And what it does is it naturally kind of builds a desensitization to the content that we consume. I think that it has gotten to a point that it is so bad and so extreme that over the last few years or so, we've just gotten completely desensitized to it. And not only have we gotten desensitized to it, but our younger generations are being flushed into that kind of desensitized, I guess, kind of like those desensitized videos. We think as the older generation is kind of normal now, but now the younger generations are consuming that content, and that's a problem. That's where the problem lies, is when the younger generations begin to consume this content. The younger generation genuinely they don't know any better. And honestly, neither do we. If you really think about it in the grand scheme of things, our society has only been introduced to social media and the internet. It has not been that long. Getting back to my point, when it does feed into the younger generations, whatever the content is, man, whether it is just AI infused shit slop or humans doing very, very inappropriate and extreme things just for clicks and for engagement, it's going to leave some lasting effects on the future generations. So in that kind of leads me to my second factor, and that is desensitization. It is no secret that the content that we all consume over the last few years has just gotten more and more progressively just, I don't even know, man. Like even the brain, and look, I get it, bro, because I love me some good brain rot. I love sitting in dooms. I'm over here talking like I'm whatever, but in reality, I consume it too. I'm not a saint, you know what I'm saying? And I believe that, we are all kind of aware of the actual effects that doom scrolling and scrolling on social media does have on our brains and on our mental health. I've noticed that if you are introduced to the wrong forms of content, it can lead to some very poor things. And like I said, man, with the desensitization standpoint of it, I understand this from a personal level because I was introduced to the internet and social media at a very young age. And at that very young age was the beginning stages of social media when Instagram first came out and Snapchat. I've seen things on these apps that genuinely probably no human was ever meant to see. I was exposed to things like gore and other stuff like that too at very young ages, like middle school and stuff. You pull up to class and your homeboy's like, yo, look at this video. And he shows you a video of some dude getting his head chopped off with a chainsaw. And it's just like, damn, okay. Like, those are genuinely things that humans are never supposed to see. Those are genuinely traumatic experiences that humans should never see. Genuinely on Instagram and whatever, bro. Like I've seen people die. I've seen people get shot. I've seen car crash. I've lost count of how many car crashes. I've lost count of all these things. But, I've seen people get stabbed. Like these are all real life events that happen that are supposed to be very traumatic that people aren't really supposed to see. These are things that kind of when you see them, they're almost incomprehensible to the human mind that you just witnessed something that traumatic. But to my point, now when I see something like that on my Instagram Reels, it's kind of like, damn, that's kind of crazy. Scroll. You know what I'm saying? It's like, keep going about my day. It's crazy. But obviously there's the side of it that we all get used to these like horrible acts that we see on social media, and that we all also get desensitized to the shit slop that's out there too, that, we are consuming and that our younger generations are consuming. As I stated earlier, everyone's looking for the next million view video. So the goal is to outdo whatever it is that the last person did, whether that's more captions or a different game that's on the bottom of the screen while whatever it is playing on top of it, or adding multiple layers to kind of trap the attention of whatever the younger audience is consuming. Whatever it is, man, whenever those layers to grab that attention of the young kids gets deeper and deeper, it just genuinely does fry their brains. I have seen some genuine brain numbing content on every genuine, I know that there's like brain rot, but some of the stuff that I've seen is genuine. Like when you watch it, I felt genuinely dumber after watching this. I don't know what audience is watching this. I could only assume it's the younger generations. It's genuinely concerning. But to my point about social media desensitizing us from everything, not only does it desensitize us from what's numbing our brains or whatever, and what's crazy and traumatic, but it's also desensitizing us from a lot of just basic human interactions. Social media is kind of desensitizing us from reality entirely. It desensitizes us from necessary human interactions. It desensitizes us from erratic behavior. It's heavily desensitized us to the dating scene or other intimate human interactions such as sex, or obviously, like I said, dating as well, especially when it comes to the sexual classification of the opposite gender as well. Like, genuinely, bro, if you tried to explain the concept of a World Star Twerk compilation to somebody who was born in the 60s, I don't even think that they could begin conceptualizing that. I genuinely don't think you can. But to us, that's something that's so normalized now, which is crazy. And that is because of social media. We have even become, honestly, desensitized to our own planet. We see a lot of the beauty in our world on our phones and on social media that it doesn't give us the drive to go out and do things anymore. It doesn't give us the need to go out and explore. One of the biggest reasons why we get so desensitized to everything is because of how much of a false reality social media actually is. We all kind of get caught up in a fake reality that we almost forget how to act entirely in our real reality. This has happened to me as well, but there are times where social media does genuinely create a sort of identity crisis in who you are, especially to somebody who's growing up in the world. It creates a identity crisis for who you are becoming. It's creating the idea of who you should be. So it creates stress and could create harmful impacts on people who are adolescent teenagers who are developing. And I would honestly say that this is only a problem when the content itself is unregulated or the amount of content is unregulated. Mature content gets distributed into the minds of our youthful generations, honestly, a lot more than it should. And we see our generations trying to mimic those mature mannerisms. If you are a human that was born in the Gen Z generation, maybe millennials as well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's be honest. We were all probably not supposed to be doing the things that we were doing on social media and Snapchat when we were in high school, right? But everybody wanted to be older than they actually were. And that's human nature. That's not something that's ever been different. That is not abnormal behavior for an adolescent teenager. But through the influences of social media, those mannerisms, the way of acting is arguably a lot more damaging nowadays than it ever has been. And this leads me into the final factor, and that is the physical and psychological harm that social media has on future generations. We all doom scroll every single day. It's something that's become a part of our society as a whole. I do it a lot. I'm going to go back to the paper that I referenced earlier. There was a statistic from a study that was published by Dr. Gloria Mark, and it states that in the early 2000s, the average attention span of a human before switching tasks was 2.5 minutes. And now it's said that the average is 47 seconds. There was another study from Pennsylvania State University that showed on average its participants had picked up their phones 228 times in a day, each session lasting for an average of only 10 seconds per pickup. That's not something that's normal. Honestly, to me, there's times where it feels unhealthy. It almost feels like an addiction sometimes. Anyway, these habits get picked up into the youth of our generation, and it becomes worse and worse. And I'll explain why right now. So it is a known fact that scrolling on your phone releases dopamine in your brain. For those who don't know what dopamine is a neurotransmitter, or in other words, it's a chemical in your brain that gets released when there's a rewarding sensation or a pleasure. It's known as the brain's happy chemical. Dopamine is a very great thing. It gets released when you do simple things. You do simple things like eating, or you have a positive interaction with somebody. You get a dopamine flush. But, however, because it is the happy chemical in the brain, dopamine plays a key role in things like addiction, because what it does is it reinforces behaviors and motivates repeated actions. Every time that you scroll on your phone, little small bursts of dopamine get shot in through those neurotransmitters. Think about it like this. Each and every single time that you scroll on your phone, however many times that may be a day, each time you scroll, your brain gets a sense of reward. And the reward could be in finding a funny video, or finding an informational video, or finding a video that you find entertaining. So you get the urge to keep doing it more and more. The more that the stimulant becomes regular, in this case the doom scrolling, the more the brain reduces those dopamine receptors and an increase of the stimulant is needed to feel the same effect, which basically just leads to a big snowball effect of doom scrolling, right? Looking for the next funny video or looking for the next entertaining video to make you feel that little rush of dopamine, right? But in doing so, when you doom scroll excessively, that is, it leads to a decline of dopamine production, which means that you won't find pleasure in other little things throughout the day. Finding pleasure in just everyday activities becomes a little bit more difficult, and this feeling is known as anhedonia. Anhedonia is a common symptom of MDD or major depression disorder. It's a little alarming to do this research and see what the correlation is between doom scrolling and depression. To be honest, I feel like it got me a little bit. There are times where I'm on my phone and it genuinely does feel like when I do get caught up doom scrolling, I'm just being sucked and drained entirely of my energy. This is not the case for everybody. This is really only if the content is consumed in an unregulated or an unhealthy manner. But that seems to be a problem nowadays. And to the underdeveloped mind of a child/adolescent teenager, it can be very damaging and have some very damaging lasting effects. All in all, we're coming up in a world where digital media runs everything we do. It's constantly changing and evolving, so I honestly think it's almost a little hard to really predict how detrimental that evolution and change is going to be for our future generations. But like I said, I think I have an idea, and I don't think it's going to be great. I think a lot of future generations is genuinely, it's going to, some people are going to struggle. I think we already see it in today's society where it just, all those factors play in together. They all rope in together. I know how it's going to be for my kids when I have kids. I don't think I'm going to have them on social media till they're of a decent age. I would say probably in their teens. Because like I said, I was also a teenager in the early stages of social media. I know how it gets. It is safe to say, though, that if the content is safely consumed and regulated, it will not have those lasting effects. If you're watching this and you do feel like, and you are of that age where, maybe your prefrontal cortex hasn't fully developed and you feel those symptoms, maybe just take a break from the social media. That's my best advice that I can give you. Social media does create a very false sense of reality for a lot of people. It can have some really lasting and damaging effects if you let it consume you. It's really difficult to get off of social medias and to just completely go cold turkey on it. It's super difficult. It took a lot for me over this last summer to really get comfortable with not being around my phone, which is kind of crazy. I would say now more than ever throughout the whole summer, through little practices, learning to control those urges, not scrolling as much, it's really helped me and benefited me cognitively in so many different ways that it's crazy. So like I said, as I always advocate for this channel, if you do find yourself struggling with mental health, please do speak out, go get help. But my one piece of advice that I could give you is just take a break from the social medias, because there's a lot of bad content out there and there's a lot of people who make content that is geared to genuinely kind of numb the brains of our future generation so that they can just consume their content and consume, honestly, their products more and more. Other than that, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. That's really all I got for y'all today. Let me know if you want more content like this. I'm definitely going to be planning to do some more where I kind of just sit down and talk and actually edit the videos so that it's not just unfiltered whatever. If you did like it, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch y'all on the next one.